Hi, this is the first video for Tanakh test happening on March 15th. And we're starting with Perek Chaf Aleph and Sefer Melachim. A couple of things. Sheet number 13. You are responsible to have the general knowledge of the content in the prakim. You'll have a English Hebrew Tanakh that obviously you can use, and I will guide you to where you have to start to look for the answers, but you have to be familiar with the content. And in these videos, I will emphasize some of the major points we made in class, and obviously those are the things I'm going to ask. I'm not going to ask the minor points. The other thing is that when I'm online, I want an English Hebrew Tanakh. I put in Chabad Tanakh. I get this, comes out the complete Tanakh. I click on it, and I go we're going to Nevi'im. Scroll down, we're going to Melachim Bet, and we're going to Perek Chaf Aleph, which is 21. I find this to be the simplest explanation, easy to read, much easier than the art scroll. And we're going to start with Menashe. So we learned here about the king Menashe, and a couple of things that are important about Menashe. First and foremost, his father is Chizkiyahu HaMelech. Chizkiyahu is a tzaddik. And that's very significant. Even though his father was a tzaddik, Menashe turns out to be a rasha, turns out to be a very evil king. If we look for the initial offense of Menashe, a couple of things. First of all, Menashe, if we read the Perek, is in power for 55 years. So all the changes that are mentioned here in the Navi didn't happen overnight. Like anything else, the society did not go from being a righteous society, an evil society, in a week. It took a long time. But he started off when he was 12 years old. And maybe that's part of the reason why he veered, is because he started so young. But he goes ahead and Pasuk Gimel, and the Torah and the Navi says, "Vayasha v'yivet etz habanmot asher ibad Chizkiyahu aviv." So the first thing that he did was that he allowed the bamot to be rebuilt. Bamot were, again, English is high places, but those were individual places to bring korbanot. Instead of people coming to the Beit HaMikdash, they would build essentially a bama in their backyard, and they can go ahead and they can give korbanot there. Now, this is something which is asur. Once it's a Beit HaMikdash, the korbanot had to come to Yerushalayim to the Beit HaMikdash, but this is something which was very popular, because instead of having to schlep to Yerushalayim, I could be from and bring korbanot and just go down the block and bring my korbanot. So it was an easy thing to come in and to reintroduce. But once that happened, right away, Vayokom Mizbachot Labal. Then people started to use the same mizbachot to go ahead and to pay homage to Avodah Zarah. Vayas Asherah Ka'asher Asa Achav Melech Yisrael. So Menashe, again, is being compared to Achav. Achav was the last Melech Yisrael. We explained that the kingdom of Israel was divided into two, to that of Yehudah and Yisrael. The kingdom of Yisrael was destroyed by Sancherib. Sancherib was the king of Assyria. He came in and conquered the 10 tribes and dispersed them throughout the world. He also wants to conquer Yehudah. However, Chizkiyahu HaMelech was able to prevent that through his tefillah and through the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But now Menashe is the Melech Yehudah, and he's acting like Achav did. And you see in the subsequent psukim, he starts to go ahead and builds all sorts of mizbachot, to all sorts of idolatry. In Pasuk Vav, he starts to go ahead and give his children as sacrifices to various cults and idolatries. A whole long list of different things that Menashe did, until you have in Pasuk Yud Aleph the promise of Hashem. Ya'as asher asa Menashe melech Yehudah tavot te'ela hira mikol asher asa Amori asher lefanav vayachtigam et Yehudah b'gilulav. Since he did all these horrible things, the Pasuk Yebet and Pasuk Yigimel gives the response of the Ribbon Shalom. L'chein kol amar Hashem elokei Yisrael. Thus says God, is going to be horrible calamity brought upon the Jewish people remaining. I'm going to go ahead, and the same way that Shomron was destroyed, I'm going to do the same thing. And this is always the very effective words of the Navi, that what's going to happen to you happens already. Not just some vague promise. Look what happened to the other guy already. We said in smoking. If I wanted you to stop smoking, I say, well, the other guy was smoking and he died. then you're going to be much more liable to listen just to say, oh, you shouldn't smoke. But give an example. So in Pasuk Gimel, you have these examples which are given that it already happened to Shomron. Beit Achav was destroyed. The same thing is going to happen to you, to Yerushalayim. There's no going back. And then almost incidentally in Pasuk Tet Zayin, another Avera is mentioned. V'gam dam naki shafach min hashar bei ma'od. He also murdered people. And apparently it's mentioned as an afterthought because it didn't have that much effect upon the people. It's sort of like this is how society degenerated. And so when there's a retzach, when there's a murder, there's a murder. Kacha, that's what happens. And then the parak concludes with the death of Menashe after 55 years, and then his son Amon goes in and takes over. He rules for 2 years. He copies his father. However, what happens to Amon eventually in Pasuk of Gimel? They assassinate Amon. Apparently, the people want a change, and in Pasuk Avav, they do get this change because comes Yoshiyahu, the son of Amon, and Yoshiyahu turns out to be the Melech Tov. He's the one standout of a Melech who's Obed Hashem. Some say Yoshiyahu had the potential actually to be Melech HaMashiach, not for 1 or 2 mistakes that he made. Now, what's important here is not just what's written in the Navi, but what's not written. When we learned this, we also learned that there is another part in the Tanakh which speaks about Menashe as well. And there we're going to go to Divrei Hayamim Bet, Perek Lamed Gimel. So here, let's go back to the Tanakh, Perek Divrei Hayamim Bet. So go back over here to the top. It's very easy to deal with this. It's not Nevi'ah, now going to Ktuvim. Perek Divrei Hayamim Bet, Perek Lamed Gimel, which is 33. There we go. We're here already. And the pasuk again goes ahead and there chronicles very much what Menashe did, the same as we have it. But here, all of a sudden, if we look in pasuk Yud Aleph, we say, that Menashe was taken bound by the king of Assyria, and he was bound to copper chains and brought to Bavel. And in Bavel, all of a sudden, in Pasuk Yebet, he started to dive into Hashem. He became humble. And Menashe mitpalel to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem hears the tefillot of Menashe. And look at the end of Pasuk Gimel. He recognizes God, and he comes back to Ir David. And he tries to fix things. He tries to take away the Avodah Zarah. In Pasuk Tedvav, he builds him. In Pasuk Tedzayin, Pasuk 16, he builds him Mizbeach. He builds him Mizbeach to Hashem. And what we asked here is, why does the Navi and Melachim not mention any of this? We gave 2 possible answers. Answer number 1. Apparently, the tshuva of Menashe was insufficient because it had no effect upon the general population. He himself came back, but as you say, the horse is already out of the barn. The people as a whole were no longer worshiping Hashem. They were involved in Usus Avodah Zarah. So even if he came back, his tshuva did not have an effect upon others. That was the answer number 1. Number 2, as he said, his tshuva is not mentioned because his tshuva was done out of the sense because he was being punished. It wasn't done because he woke up one day and realized what he was doing was wrong. He sort of like was in prison. He was chained. And all of a sudden, now he comes back to Hashem. So while he did tshuva and he was returned to his mlucha, he was able to be extricated from prison and come back to Yehuda. His tshuva was considered to be insufficient. And maybe that's why it is not mentioned